I'm seeing it on my end as if it's not inverted.
All right, perfect. Now we are good to go. Except errors are occurring. You guys can go ahead and start if you guys want.
Okay, another week. Nothing ever happens.
Nothing, I guess, in a way, nothing ever happened. I'm going to write MemeLand instead of Greenland. Greenland, Iran, and what else are we talking about?
I put a full list in there, so
He
there's
did.
quite a bit. There's quite a bit that has happened. I try to keep it within the past couple of days because we know with this administration things change pretty damn quickly. Um, so right now, what I've got is the Trump and Denmark deal.
Copied and pasted into our chat there.
Yep, I'll put it in the chat here. Where is
Already
it?
did.
Where's the chat? Oh, perfect. Okay. Yep. Trump Denmark deal. The J6 committee we had happen today. The Trump and the WEF. There's a whole lot that can encompass in just that alone. Democrats siding with Republicans on the minibus. That's kind of a very short topic, but it's also something I think is very important and shows why the Democratic Party is not super favorable currently in the way that it's sitting. We want to fight, and the Democrats, time and time again, seem to never give us that fight. So, ICE administrative warrants going into homes. Renee Good with the independent autopsy for their the family's independent medical examiner. And then the Trump-Iran readiness or Trump and Iran in general. So that'll be very interesting. Where do y'all want to pick up? We can start with the Trump WEF because I think there's quite a bit of meat there.
I think we start with Greenland.
Greenland. Exactly. That's what everyone's talking about. The MemeLand deal.
Yep.
That is, so what are we feeling there? What can even be said that hasn't been said?
I mean, taco.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
I think
dude,
taco's
it's Taco
definitely-
Thursday, and it's Taco Thursday in Greenland apparently.
It is. I think that what we're seeing right now play out is what was to be expected. But I think there's a lot of people too that don't quite understand just what actually happened. So
Yes.
Denmark was essentially left out of this deal. They had no say in this deal, apparently. And furthermore, Mark Rutte is a
There is
Trump
no deal.
sycophant. Yeah, there is no deal, right? And Mark Rutte is a Trump sycophant, okay? He quite literally, and I posted this on X, I was like, somebody's got to catch this, and nobody has. He called Trump daddy in June of 2025, just last year. Just 6 months ago. We've forgotten all about that. But he did that last year. And so even during the WEF conference, Mark Rutte showed favorites towards wanting to, Greenland should be acquired by the U.S. He essentially said that in so many words. So what it looks like,
And just for the audience, who is Mark Rutte? Just for the audience.
Mark Rutte's the NATO secretary. To be clear, he's kind of like either the NATO president or something like that, or whatever.
Wild to have
But-
Yeah, and
NATO
he's American
president.
because, NATO's a bunch of different member countries. So it's very relevant that he's American.
It's very strange to me
Right.
that
And-
he would
yes.
that, someone who is part of NATO would be so pro-Trump.
Well, and it makes sense what happened. I believe that this administration realized that they had and let me put this also in context and back up a little bit. During that morning, the EU paused their trade deal with Trump.
Yep.
This also has gotten lost in the noise. Okay,
I heard about
the
that.
EU paused their trade deal talks, and so I think that Trump was feeling the pressure from all sides, militarily
sides.
speaking, the economic side, and so I think what we're seeing is that Donald
I think
Trump
there's an
needed
important side you're missing there, and that is even from his own party. Right?
Yes,
Correct.
true.
They said we would impeach you
Republican-
essentially.
Republicans
Bacon said
did
that,
not
yeah.
want to see an invasion of Greenland. This polls went up about it, and it quickly showed that it was one of the most unpopular issues there is. Consistently top 3 opposed. This is something, and even just on the Republican side, I mean, Democrats, of course, were way, way, way against it. But 3/4 of Republicans were saying no, absolutely no way no war with Denmark.
No war with Denmark. Like what? Imagine just saying
Yeah.
that. Even saying that during the 2024 election, it would have been just weird. Now we're whatever. Yeah. No war with Denmark.
So
Hot take.
yeah, and I think that's kind of the crazy thing, right? Is so what I believe is Trump needed an exit strategy, and who better than Mark Rutte to provide him that door? And I think that's what happened, and we all saw it. Now, those who are just watching it from a very 1,000-foot overview perspective are probably saying Trump taco, and I would agree. Trump always chickens out, but it's a lot. There's more layers to it, right? That Mark Rutte was involved. That Trump realized that he was being pressured, which I think, to go even further, it shows that if you can actually put pressure on Trump, he will cave. And this is why, again, I think to kind of, segue a little bit into the Democrats caving in the minibus bill, the only reason Trump's allowed to get away with so much of that he's allowed to get away with is because we allow him to get away with it. We allow him. We meet him in the middle. We just say, yeah, well, we'll give you a little bit. If we just apply a little bit of pressure, he will cave.
Yeah, when people stand up, he tacos, right? And the problem is that people, particularly congressional Democrats, are not standing up enough. In working in advocacy in DC, and you'll hear this term on the media sometimes, but political capital.
Yeah.
Everything you do, every position you take costs you something. It costs you support of the people. It gains you support or it costs you support. And, Trump's not up for election this year, but he has been bleeding support among Republicans like crazy. And fewer Republicans are flying the MAGA brand, right? Because too much of this stuff, like invade Greenland, is just losing them, right? As it should. And Trump doesn't really have to pay for that too immediately, but Congress does. It's an election year. And Republicans are probably going to lose the House and the Senate. But as we're seeing with this minibus, the margin makes a difference. 6 Democrats crossed over. Now imagine that Democrats have a 10-seat lead. Those 6 Democrats no longer matter, right? And that's exactly what we're seeing, right? When Congress is very narrow, then when one side has a narrow majority, then the middle kind of wins. Whoever's willing to cross over, whether that's Republicans or Democrats, the moderates who are willing to stand up for something or horse trade, whatever it may be, they end up the winners because they're going to get the most of what they want. And I guarantee you, some of those 6 Democrats, they weren't doing it for the ICE support. They traded for something, and I'll be curious to see what they got out of it.
Yeah, and I think
that's how our system works.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because there was other things that were tied into this bill, and also it had to do with flooding, FEMA, I think was part of that, as well as a few other things. So it's not totally surprising that they broke away, but again, it's just one of those things of like, we got to stand up against this administration, and every time we're like, this is it, this is the moment. And yes, you'll notice I need to remove my background on my screen or the timer. But anyways, I think that we need to go through and we need to try to stand up. And I looked at seeing when these people are up for re-election. Believe it or not, a few of them are up for re-election this year.
Fetterman's one of them, right?
Which is,
he was one of the ones that caved.
Well, no, he wasn't one of the ones that caved. That was, I think, probably the most shocking thing I saw. I don't know if he voted at all, but from what I saw, there was only about, I think, 7 Democratic House representatives representatives that voted against this or voted for.
Voted for it. 6 voted for it.
Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, so it's pretty crazy to see. I will say I went through very quickly to look at this bill to see, if there's anything kind of alarming in looking in that. I did not see anything that really stuck out to me on its face, but what I was, so it looks like. Oh, here, I'm gonna mute this. I'm sorry. I was hearing the game in my ear. I was trying to figure out where it was coming from. There definitely didn't seem to be anything in there that really was alarming. It was more like for the Coast Guard stuff, more for like Border Patrol drones that are near the border, things of that nature. It wasn't wild. So maybe that's why they took it, was because like there's nothing in the bill that's like super contentious other than just continuing that funding for DHS.
So and
we're
by the
not-
way,
we're
there
not
were
feeling the
Republicans that were going to vote against this who got some deals as well.
I wonder what.
So I can read some of it to you. Year-round sales of E15 ethanol, because it's usually reduced in the summer. So some Republicans held out for that. Some various community projects. Some people wanted some local pork, of course. Yes. A laundry list of local projects. I'm trying to figure out what the 6 Democrats got for it.
A high five?
I mean, hopefully they got something good.
Yeah, because it's going to cost them.
It was 7 House Democrats in the end. I was wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was 7. But I think this is the problem is that when we look at this administration, the problem we have here is that your base wants to see. Now, and I understand, I think one of them was like Quaylar, and he's a Democratic representative in Texas. I don't know where his district sits, so it's possible that he's looking towards the midterms and trying to come off as more moderate. I think he is someone that is up for re-election this year. So I think that would make probably the most sense, is he's trying to, say, hey, look, especially in a place like Texas, right?
Yeah.
So I know that's the issue with Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. Her district voted for Trump. She's a Democrat in that district. It's had some fairly MAGA Republicans before her. So this may have been a compromise. I don't really know. She's got a lot of immigrants in her district too. But we'll see.
And as I sit here and think about it, I will be very honest. I'm starting to think, do you give up the short game for the long game, right? Which is, yes. In other words, if Quaylar voted no, well, now in a very, purplish area, let's assume that that's the case, now you risk losing that seat to a Republican. Electoral politics has to come into this. Because now if you save that energy for the midterms and he does get reelected because of how moderate he was, well, now we have more numbers in the House. And it's exactly, right? It's like there's kind of that long game play.
We'll never know for sure.
So
if it's worth it, unfortunately. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So, David, did you want to chime in on?
Do you know to what extent it was? They want Trump, but do you know to what extent? That's a very interesting question, because it was only like +3. It's less important.
I agree with Vince here. You have to cut some slack for those people who are in difficult districts doing what their voters want them to, right? It is the House of Representatives. They are meant to represent what the voters want. And, sometimes, the voters know what they want and deserve to have it given to them good and hard, as the old expression goes. And the Senate is different than that, right? The Senate's reelected only every 6 years so that they can hold on to their conscience, if they have one, or their sellout principles, whatever it is that particular senator has going for them, and do what they feel is appropriate because they don't face reelection, for... Yeah. But the House, people there, they are always accountable to their voters. That is the voters of their district, not the voters of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party across the nation. They are accountable to the voters in their district. And we get lots of little local particularities. I never blame a representative for doing what's popular in their district, right? I actually am more upset with them when they don't. When they go against
mean-
common sense and the people of their district and kind of give them the middle finger.
There are
And then,
limits to that.
you know,
though. If someone voted to not impeach Trump after Jan 6, that's probably like, you probably should have done that.
if you're in a blue district and you voted not to impeach Trump, then yeah, you deserve what you have coming to you at election time. You know, Representative Luna in Florida or Green, they're in it for the money, right? They are making themselves such extreme personalities. They know that, you know, re-election's always a long shot for them, just like the first election was. And they're just milking everything they can, particularly outrage farming, for as long as the ride keeps going.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for them in the long term. I know last year we saw where the shutdown ended because a few Democrats who conveniently were not up for re-election in the midterms voted against it. So I think each vote should be weighed on its own merits, and I think each one carries its own thing. I think in this case, it seems like a bunch of rogue Democrats just kind of went to the left and said, "Hey, we'll go ahead and vote with Republicans." So we'll see how it plays out. Unfortunately, the shutdown is not going to be a tool that we are going to be able to use to control ICE. And with that, I think we could probably move into the next one, which is what's going on right now. Go ahead, Dan.
Before you say that, I think it's premature. This was just a minibus. This is not fully funded the government, right? So I do agree that if we were going to stop it, ICE was the most justified point to hold up the budget. But there are other parts where they could draw the line. I don't think they should. But it is still a tool right now that is in play.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Warren?
I was gonna say, so how long is this funding for? Like, what's the, you know what I mean? Like, how much are they, how is this gonna play into the government shutdown? Are we still gonna face a shutdown, or what are we looking at in that regard?
So this is a partial budget because Congress has been unable to do its job and pass a budget under Trump. So it does not fund all the things that the U.S. government is supposed to fund right now, right? So this doesn't deal with, for instance, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. This was dealing with FBI, ICE, Guard, and other, kind of defense and law enforcement agencies.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be pretty interesting to see how it plays out in the long term. I said I think that I kind of agree as I start to think about it and sit on it is that I would prefer that we retain as many seats as possible. If that means appearing moderate and ticking off a few Dems, so be it. Right? If it means that we hold power and then when it's showtime, you show up, right? Like in instance, let's just hypothetically say that they were to impeach Trump, which I think they're going to probably try to do if they end up getting the majority in the House. Question on whether or not they fully go through with it, in the Senate. That's a whole nother calculation. But I think that if we end up retaining the House and they show up when it's important and vote to impeach, that's where it matters. I think here with the budget, it matters, but it's a more stick it to you DHS kind of thing. And I just think that it's too risky. I would probably agree at that point. Then, yeah, maybe those Democrats probably should have in that case if they felt that they would not be reelected.
And it's also possible there was some horse trading. We won't know about that up front. So it could be that someone said, yeah, I'll vote to pass this if you vote to impeach Kristi Noem if it comes up, right? And if someone made that deal, they're in my good list. Yeah. We won't find out about that for maybe a month down the road or so. But yeah, there's definitely some quiet long-term planning that goes on. Representatives do individually kind of horse trade their votes from time to time. Again, particularly when you're in kind of a swing district, and it's easier to do so when you can get points on both sides for your red base and your blue base in the swing districts. But I don't know that happened. We just have to wait and see.
One individual in the chat is 709 The Drive. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, man. Has commented that he thinks that that Marjorie Taylor Greene left because it was the will of her voters. Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe you guys, I don't, on the Epstein file specifically, do you think that's the case, or do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene just left because she knew this Congress was going to go down in flames, basically? And used the
She
Epstein
knows
as a
this
flame?
Congress is going down in flames, and she is a rat fleeing the sinking ship. She's not going down with them, right? So despite all of her outlandishness and her craziness, all the stuff that happens on this Congress, she's out. Blaine doesn't get pinned on her by the voters. Voters have mostly short-term memories.
Yeah, very.
So she can run out now, and then 2 years from now, when there's no more Donald Trump, she can run as the Queen of MAGA for the presidency.
Exactly.
Wow.
And she's way more popular than J.D. Vance.
Yeah, I think that's also far more concerning too. Like, it's kind of like, people think that Trump is bad, but just remember, Marjorie Taylor left because he wasn't MAGA enough, right? It's not like she's leaving and then all of a sudden become a socialist or a progressive or a liberal, even for that matter. She's leaving because he's not far right enough. So when she does step back into the spotlight, she's going to further move that needle, right? She's going to move that needle more to the right. And I think that's the really concerning part here is what happens when you get a competent authoritarian versus an incompetent authoritarian. That's pretty terrifying to me. Either way, it's still authoritarian, but, one's a little bit more able to know what they're doing, so to speak, and doesn't change on emotions because somebody danced on a video and now you're no longer the head of your state.
That's actually still bananas. That was like a decision maker.
So you asked earlier, Owen, what was going on, and the House has split up the budget into 4 different bills that they are voting on separately, independently, in order for there to be a budget this year. There wasn't last year. They just did a whole bunch of continuing resolutions. So in order for us to have a budget this year, all 4 have to pass in some form. And even if they get through the House, they have a separate fight in the Senate. The Senate has their own agenda. They may kick it back with modifications, whatever. It has to pass an identical form in both chambers. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's probably why also we saw a lot of news, but it didn't feel like there was a lot of tension being built up before we got to this point. It was just kind of like, oh, hey, this happened, which tells you that probably wasn't all that important, so to speak. I mean, it's important because the the 7 Democrat representatives obviously left. It's important in that regard, but it didn't seem like this was as big, at least the way that it felt with the news. So I knew there was something up. Sometimes these ins and outs of the Congress can get kind of weird.
Yep. And also keep in mind, if we did shut down the government, if we denied a budget, that wouldn't shut down what ICE is doing immediately, right? They would still keep doing it, and there would be a lot of other suffering. So it's not necessarily the best way to go about it. Just Democrats don't have a lot of tools because they don't have the majority in any chamber. So this is why I would be like, okay, go for the government shutdown, because what else are you going to do? But if they came up with something else, more power to them. This is not the best way to go about stopping ICE.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very fair point. And I think that that's something that we have to look at as well, is what does that mean for ICE? And it doesn't mean much. At the end of the day, they're going to get funded. They're still going to do what we're going to do. There's still a lack of training. And we could segue this into the idea of the administrative warrant stuff that came out a few days ago.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
that's on the agenda. Let's go right into it.
That would be...
David, I'll let you go ahead and lead us off on that one.
Yeah, well, first of all, this whole administrative warrant, it's a fiction, right? I can call myself the judge and the jury of my house, because free speech, I can do that, but it doesn't make me a legal judge. And administrative warrants are not legal warrants.
Maybe give it back up a second, like talk about what was whistleblown first, and then we'll.
Yeah. Well, first I want people to understand
Okay.
what an administrative warrant really is. Administrative warrant means that a bureaucrat in an agency has said, yes, go do this. They've given them a green light. But, you know, bureaucrats are not the law. They don't get to determine everything. For a lot of things in our U.S. system of government, you need an actual judge, a constitutional judge, not somebody who's calling themselves a judge, because our agencies have those too. Administrative law judges. In fact, that's what ICE calls their own, the people who are giving them the green or red light on, you know, taking people. Those are administrative law judges. They are not judges under the requirements of the U.S. Constitution. So, you know, case law says that they are a judge who is not a judge, right? They can do all of the things a bureaucrat can and none of the things that a judge can. So this is what they're doing. They're trying to push this off as a court with all the legitimacy of the court, and it has none of it. It is a court in name only. It is a warrant in name only. And, you know, we have this memo which whistleblowers leaked, and we don't know who. That's an interesting thing because there's some interesting details. DHS said today that this memo didn't go out to agents. It only went out to like supervisors and trainers, which is kind of interesting because they knew it was bad. So they're from the beginning trying to cover this up, but it didn't work. But there's an open admission that this is what is going on. They have told their agents, trained them, that they can just go into people's houses, which is an absolute no-no. This is an absolute Fourth Amendment violation. But, you know, it's an abuse without a remedy in court, right? So it's kind of a getaway free thing. Oh yeah, it's illegal, it's bad, but there's no punishment for it, right? That's where we're at right now. And that's part of why this is going to continue, because there's no punishment for it. Probably until the people just get fed up. We have not scraped bottom yet. This is going to get worse. Personally, I think it's not going to end until the way the similar abuses in the 90s did with Ruby Ridge and Waco, when you have agents who are shot, right? Because that's where when you are invading people's homes without warrants, right? You're kicking down doors and you're ripping people out of their bathtubs, you're grabbing their kids, you're wearing masks, right? We are very lucky that agents have not been killed so far. They're going to get the wrong house and it's going to happen.
That's
right?
kind of my concern, right? Is that like, I don't see the off-ramp here. And that's what terrifies me, is that the way they are consistently just ramping up, this is only going to end in tragedy. And I hope it doesn't. I pray that we don't have anything like this happen. But it just feels like that's the train wreck that we are on. And that train is heading right off the cliff, if not already halfway off the cliff. And that's the concern I have with the direction this is going. I think with the administrative warrant stuff, I think that it's even more abhorrent. To what you were saying about supervisors, the problem there is there's speculation that supervisors are giving the training verbally, but not giving the context by which even their own memo states. For example, not, only going in if you know the suspect is there, physically there, not just lives there, but physically there. They're probably not, there's suggestions that they're not even giving that advice. They're just saying if the suspect lives there, you have authority to just barge into somebody's home. And that's a grave concern. And so, we've seen this play out in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a very big hotbed right now between the church incident, which I'm sure we'll get into, the incident that's taking place with protesters. We're seeing pictures of ICE agents let me correct that, bear spraying people in the face in direct contact, which by the way is directly not supposed to happen. And I know I'm throwing off a lot here, but bear with me. We're also seeing potential carcinogenic gas being used in these protests. The green smoke you're seeing, is a known carcinogen, and they're putting it right in people's faces. This is terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez,
And I don't know if y'all saw this.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what can we do about this? Kind of just feels like we truly are just. We need to do something about this. I don't want to say we're helpless.
This is what I think is going to happen. We saw this a tiny bit when it came to Virginia and the Second Amendment. I forgot what it was. There was some kind of bill or whatever that was being passed, and the sheriff of that county said, we're not going to enforce this law. The governor was going to enact the law. The sheriff said, we're not going to listen. We're going to disregard it. I think where we're going to go is that we're seeing where even some police officers are being harassed by ICE outside of their job. I just saw a video today where allegedly there was a correctional officer being harassed. When you
too, Maine and in Minnesota.
Yeah, and what happens is when you start to tick off those law enforcement, you're not getting them on your side. So I do see in a situation in which you have a, if you will, a civil war, dare I say, with local law enforcement and federal agents. I do see there being a time where local agents either stop assisting ICE in the sense of riot control or whatever it may be, or up to and including potential arrests. And I mean, we're already way past a constitutional crisis, but this is where we're heading.
I think we're already past the point where we're seeing local police agencies not helping ICE, right?
Yeah.
We're there. We're already there. It's kind of what's next? What do they do next? What if they start pulling guns on each other, right? You could have a situation where, especially when you have ICE, they're not identifying themselves or going around in masks. Yeah. And you have a couple guys like that pull up on local police because the policeman's black or something. And, they start pulling their guns on them. We're going to have a shootout at some point.
I'm surprised there hasn't been some ICE agent who's just gotten killed by now just because they're running around with masks on.
I am too. I think it's largely because, they're still using identified vehicles, but that's pretty easy to fake. We've already had many incidents around the country where people have just put, ICE logos and stickers on their vehicle and tried to impersonate ICE. Because it's easy to do. You don't need a uniform or badge or anything now. A mask and a vehicle decal, and you're good to go. But yeah, it's a mess. It's all headed towards disaster. And it's going to be the "I told you so" moment. Unfortunately, the problem with democracy is that all of us get what most of us deserve. So we are in the, Trump's America until we get to a point where we can correct it. Now, Republicans right now, the ball's in their court. They have the majority. They want to exit off of this. It wouldn't take too many. Five Republicans in the House, 5 in the Senate, and it's pretty much a done deal. But, they're not there yet. They don't want to pay the short-term price. I'm not sure if there's a long-term price to be paid or not.
It's going to be interesting. I think we're also seeing this with the church incident too. The church incident that just took place. Yeah, this is a big incident. Just to give a quick backstory for everybody who's watching. I'm sorry, David, if I interrupted. I'll let you finish. Do you want to finish?
No, go ahead.
Then I'm sorry. Okay, so the church incident that took place. What happened was a few protesters, I'll even go back a little further, a few protesters gathered around. Don Lemon got wind of this happening, and so he was with the protesters as they walked into a church and started protesting. Don Lemon recorded, and if you actually watch the interview, he didn't just record the protesters, he also recorded the patrons of that church as well. The problem is that now the DOJ had looked and tried to indict Don Lemon today, and they were unsuccessful, which, by the way, it's crazy to think that they are this unsuccessful when it comes to indictments. The federal government never loses an indictment, let's be very clear, but they have been wildly ineffective. Just shows you how bad it is. But
so
anyways, they try to indict.
Yeah, let me just say the old slogan in law is that you can get an indictment against a ham sandwich, right? Which
Yeah.
they've been failing at. This administration has the highest failure rate of indictments ever, and that's because the people are just saying, "Look, there's not even the pretense of a case here."
Yeah. Putting ineffective people in key important positions. Lindsay Halligan, I talked about it on a TikTok panel today. I thought was hilarious. I don't certainly claim to know all the ins and outs of that saga, but the judge is essentially saying, stop impersonating and pretending that you are some kind of a leader in this prosecution. You're not. Get off. Give me somebody else. The judges are getting irritated here, and they're like, no, stop it. They did this with Alina Habba as well. They're like, you're not in the U.S. District Attorney. I don't know why you keep claiming you are, but you're not. And it's utterly embarrassing. But to go back to what I was saying earlier, the church thing, they did arrest 2 protesters, one of which the White House put out a picture that was AI altered to reflect the woman crying, which she was not in the original photo. And they responded saying, essentially, it's just a meme.
My God, dude.
It's just a lie.
It's just a meme.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're using this. Like 2016, it's just a meme defense.
But that's what MAGA's been taught is ha ha ha. Doesn't matter whether it's truth or a lie. If it makes me feel good and makes me hate the right people. We've got a feelings-based political party, which is funny because the right used to make fun of the left for that, and yeah,
unironically, but yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly concerning to see the weaponization of our DOJ, stripping away our institutions. Besides just defunding them, besides like trying to remove the manpower, the trust in our institutions is being eroded. For example, in that memo that they sent out, they said that they consulted their internal attorneys. Well, their internal attorneys are wholly incompetent, as we've seen throughout the entirety of this court system. I watched, actually, I don't know if, David, if you watched this or not, there was the Supreme Court hearings today, this past, I think it was a couple of days ago, when it came to the firing of Lisa Cook. And the DOJ is so incompetent that I don't remember who it was that asked the Solicitor General this, but they asked, what evidence do you have in the record to show that there was that she committed this or whatever it was? Or no, they said, do you have the mortgage documents in the record? Because remember, the whole thing about Lisa Cook is that she committed mortgage fraud.
Mm-hmm.
I kid you not, when the Solicitor General sat there and said, I don't know if it's in the record, but there is a social media post that is in the record. I'm sitting there going, holy hell. The mortgage documents aren't, but a social media post is.
Yeah, that's this administration. I don't have any evidence, but I got a meme.
There you go.
I mean, my jaw hit the floor when I heard this. I was listening to it at work, and I'm like scrolling through X. I'm like, did anybody catch this? Like, you don't know the mortgage documents, the basis by which you are charging Lisa. Now, their entire thing that I understood was essentially they were trying to pick apart and saying, well, why couldn't you give her, a hearing, even at, the Roosevelt Room or something along those lines? Why did you have to go about firing her first without giving her any kind of procedural hearing or whatever it was? It certainly seems that the Supreme Court is very likely to tell Trump that he's going to have to rehire Lisa Cook, from the looks of everything that I've heard from the hearing and everything. Even we had Amy Coney Barrett. She was really critical of the Solicitor General, very critical at that. Kavanaugh seemed somewhat skeptical, but I didn't listen to a whole lot of his argumentation. So we'll see how that plays out. But those are kind of your 2 wild cards. I think Amy Coney Barrett for sure.
We had Speaker Johnson trying to threaten the court today, saying that he's all for impeaching judges who decide against Trump. So this is where it's at. But I want to push back on something you said earlier. Let's make this a little more interesting. You said eroding our institutions. I want to say that the reason this is happening is that these are flaws that were always there in our institutions that always should have been corrected. And that people like me have spoken out against again and again, right? That we need to end qualified immunity, that
Guys, real
people
quick, I'm
shouldn't
sorry.
be.
Is the system doing that thing where it's making like 30 announcements again? No, it's not.
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, was it? I saw that the other day. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was really annoying. It's doing it in the Twitch chat. Whatever. Sorry if you're in the Twitch chat. It's probably spamming you a bit. Sorry about that. You can continue.
You know, it's there because we've allowed these abuses to happen for too long. It's never been at this scale. We're seeing it worse than ever. But, you know, the protecting federal agents who knowingly violate rights, right? That's what ending qualified immunity has always been about. And Democrats didn't get it done, right? They had the opportunity, they had the popular support, and they chose not to do it because they wanted to have the abuses when it was on their side. And I know there are those on the left, Democrats right now, who are already eager to get back in power and commit the exact same abuses, but on the left. And, you know, I got to stand on principle and say, no, we need to take away these powers forever. We need systems to punish those who knowingly violate people's rights, whether they're agents or whether, you know, the people at the top. We need accountability. And we've got to really call for that level of reform when it comes to the elections this year. That needs to be a question. How are you going to fix this agency?
Well, and I think that's kind of the big question, right? And the $1 million question, because there have definitely been flaws in our system. I think it's been built on an idea of also trust that a president would not do anything crazy. So we're not going to put up a lot of guardrails, right? So it's like, you know, Trump being able to strip away the Department of Education and, you know, minimize all of these federal employees. Why didn't we do some kind of a protection in Congress to prevent that? Now, it's easy to say hindsight is 2020, of course, obviously. Those are some things that we have to look at seriously and go, okay, and what can't be fixed? For example, ICE, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm not a big abolish ICE fan, but I will say the problem is that you have now created an institution in which you have hired people at the root level, the base level, that have questionable ties to certain groups, and on top of that have some kind of an ideology now baked into their training that they can essentially do whatever they see fit to achieve the objective. And there's people even at the higher level that are also sycophants. Chrissy Nome, Tom Homan, you name it, right? Bovino or whatever his name is. All of those people, every level of ICE, you can get rid of one, but if you don't get rid of all of them, then it's just going to be a repeat eventually. Like you were saying, David, it was already broken. I mean, by the way, Tom Homan had been with DHS for God knows how long, all the way back to Obama, right? So this isn't a new thing with Tom Homan. It's just Tom Homan finally got the gates open to him to be able to do whatever the hell he wants. So that's something that we have to look at now moving forward is can ICE even be fixed at this point? Or is it going to take a complete overhaul of this entire agency to now have a new department? And I'm going to be honest, I'm about 70 to 80% of the way there saying, yeah, I think we do need to abolish ICE, or at least the current iteration of ICE. I think we have to put something in place, maybe similar, but in its current form and the current employee and the ethos of ICE as it is now, I don't think it can exist in the future.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a comment here by Joshua Barker. Simply put, in my opinion, ICE has to be purged, and at that point, it is a new organization. Thus, it will need a new name. So abolish ICE. And, you know, I'm there with Joshua, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Not that there aren't, you know, some things that they do that is legitimate, but this is just, you know, it is so far gone, we're better off starting over.
And it's not just ICE. Let's be very clear. There are other agencies where Trump has cranked up that dial to 10. Or sorry, not 10. The dial stops at 10. He's cranked it up to 100, broken the dial, and now the system in itself is a good example of this system. Maybe not an agency, but a system is the tariff policy. It was a good policy. It was a policy that we could use to leverage certain trade negotiations that we maybe needed to do. It was maybe a good policy at one point to be able to punish those who have, bad. What's the word I'm looking for?
Tensions.
Bad intentions, but it's where they have bad. God, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they have like poor working conditions. There you go. That works. Poor working conditions in their country, and so we want to shift production to a more humane country, right? So it had a lot of good intentions until Trump declared and this is the other part too. I know I'm rattling at any point, please. It's not just the tariffs; it's the national emergencies. People don't know this. All of the stuff Trump's doing right now to divert Congress, national emergencies. That needs a massive reform. We could just start there.
Yeah.
Start there and then work down, because that would eliminate 90% of what the hell is going on with the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think, we need to empower maybe the judicial branch against these administrative agencies a little more. We need to definitely put more power in the hands of the people to, I'm going to get back on my little soapbox. End qualified immunity. Nobody should have legal protection to knowingly violate your rights. So when they go in and they have no warrant, boom, that should be an immediate civil suit, right? And they should not have any protection because, if you are a government law enforcement officer, you should know the Bill of Rights. You should know not to cross that line. Yeah, and that's just basic. And if that isn't on the first day of training, then, shame on all our agencies, but the people need that protection.
I see Joshua Barker put in the chat. He said, the U.S. has no legal system. How do you think we should respond if Trump chooses to mass pardon those who commit political violence in his name? The U.S. has no legal system to revoke pardons under any circumstances. Should we let these crimes go unpunished, or should we attempt to pressure the Supreme Court to interpret a new version of the Constitution? Sally, I'm sure that it'll be possible to constitutionally amend the pardon for a while. David, if you want, I'll let you respond.
That's not entirely true. But it's true enough. Yeah, you can't really undo a pardon. However, pardon does not protect against impeachment. And there is a form of impeachment. To be clear, impeachment is just a process, just like a criminal process. There are different kinds of charges under impeachment. And we are looking at the potential of a Article 2, Section 4 impeachment, which would empty the entire administration and undo his pardons. That's something that if Democrats get control, they may have to decide between an easier impeachment and an Article 2, Section 4 impeachment. But yes, I do agree something. But I'll also say, Trump can only pardon U.S. federal offenses. He cannot pardon state offenses. So, for instance, when ICE officers kill someone in a state, they can still be prosecuted under state law. That's why the agencies are not working with them to provide any evidence for investigation, right? Because they can go and arrest that officer if they have the evidence. It also does not stop international law. So a future president, say, for instance, Pete Hegseth murdering people at sea, he can be extradited for that. That cannot be pardoned.
And everybody under Pete Hegseth who authorized that as well.
Everybody under him who authorized that and carried out the order can potentially be extradited. Yep.
And I think this is kind of the interesting part, right? Which is that there is a state system. Pardons only work for federal crimes. Would Trump's DOJ charge any of his political goons with federal crimes? Obviously not. We're seeing that play out right now, by the way, with Renee Good. And so I think that's the thing that we're going to have to see is that state charges get brought en masse, by the way. And I think uniquely, we're going to see a test, and most people don't know about this, but federal immunity. There is case law that I've seen so far, or precedent at least, where officers who have been charged for state crimes, but based upon federal immunity, they were granted that immunity and they could not be charged. For example, the one case I saw was trapping. There was some national park and wildlife thing or something like that, another, that went into a park and was trapping bears. Well, I guess the state agency ended up charging them with trespassing, but the judge ruled that they had federal immunity because of the supremacy clause. However, there was the infamous one with the sniper who ended up taking somebody out, and the prosecutor charged the individual. They got over the federal immunity, but they ended up not bringing the charges, or it didn't continue to go on. They dropped the charges when the new DA, I think, came into play. It might have been actually Ruby Ridge, but don't quote me on that. So what we're going to see with
actually,
Renee,
let me bring up what happened at Ruby Ridge, because I was about to go there anyways, and I think it's really relevant. Yeah. So in the Ruby Ridge, Idaho, which is unfortunately too long ago for many in our audience, but under Bill Clinton's Janet Reno, so this was Democrat, there was a guy, and he was a white separatist, in many ways not a good guy, but he was not in any way violent. He wanted to get away from people of other races, so he went out to remote northern Idaho with his family. Poor guy. And the ATF basically decided that, they were going to get some good publicity and they were going to entrap this guy. So they talked him into modifying a pipe that was a shotgun barrel. There's some question about whether he even knew it was a gun part or not. He took 2 inches off of it, right? And then that was it. Let's go get him, boys. So he was walking with a friend, his young boy, and their dog, and agents jumped out. And I believe in the court case, it was proved that the government agents shot first. They killed the boy and the dog, and Weaver's friend shot back, killed a U.S. Marshal. There were some other shootings and gunfights as well. The Randy Weaver's wife was shot by a U.S. Sniper working for the ATF while she was holding a baby. She was unarmed. All of this went through. They ended up surrendering. All the evidence came out in court, and a jury did not convict them for killing U.S. agents, right? So this is the Second Amendment in play, and this is part of why I'm afraid that this is where it's going to go, because it is intended as the last recourse, and we're getting awfully close to it. Though I expect that one of these days they're just going to hit some kind of drug house or some kind of organized crime, and maybe that'll do it. There's more than just people who legally have guns in the U.S., right? But yeah, so that all played out in the 90s. While that was still going, they actually did the infamous attack in Waco, Texas, which involved actually many of the same people that were behind Ruby Ridge. At least 4 agents were shot, injured. They were not killed. And, news cameras caught them burning down a compound full of women and children on live TV, right? So there was excuses. At first they said that, the cultists set fire to it. Their words, they were calling them a cult. But it was proven that they intentionally used flammable gas and parked armored personnel carriers on top of the exits that the women and children were trapped under. All of this was under the supposed claim that they were trying to save the children from the cult, and so they burned them alive. Yeah, and this is, part of because those people never really faced prosecution is why we're in this mess now, right? If that had been properly handled, and properly handled by Democrats, instead of protecting, a Democrat attorney general, we wouldn't be in this mess today. And it should also be a lesson to Republicans. There is that dark regressive side of the party. You don't know which Democrats you're going to get. So I don't know which Democrats we're going to get this election cycle.
I
When you leave a dangerous weapon out there in the middle of the table, you don't know who's going to grab it. It's just best if it's not there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we're at with the government right now.
I think that's kind of a concern of mine, though, too, is that Trump has already mentioned numerous times he's itching so hard to invoke the Insurrection Act. And I think that is a scenario where we're looking at in real time of to what you were saying, David, is if this does happen, where God forbid, but if someone is, I want to go use TikTok language, by the way, so bad because I'm so used to arguing on TikTok. So if you ever catch me here, he's like saying like unalived or pew pew. Understand it's TikTok friendly language. But you know, we're so close to seeing this happen. If it does happen, this is when I think all hell breaks loose, because at that point, Trump will now say, I have every justification in the world to send in the military onto our U.S. streets. And how far does he extend that, right? Because then he could sit there and say that the person that did it was a part of Antifa. And because Antifa was the one who committed, now he's going to start labeling because they're wearing black shirts. I'm not trying to be fear-mongering here, but I think when we look at how insane or how quickly things can get out of control, that is just how it is. It is a moment in history that the books will remember for the next several hundred years, because that will be equivalent to what we saw in the 1700s with the Boston Massacre or whatever it was, right? I mean, akin to that. So where the one person fires into the crowd and then everybody else lets loose, kind of thing. It's akin to that. Not, I'm saying that metaphorically speaking, not like, you know, or figuratively speaking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it is that kind of a moment in history. So I pray, and that's why I genuinely pray that this does not happen, and somehow, some way, this intense bonfire cools down. I'm skeptical, but I'm trying to hold out hope.
I'm there too. I mean, it's where I think it's going to go. I hope it doesn't. I hope cooler heads prevail. And while I'm not against, you know, people have the right to defend themselves. If, you know, you're getting your door kicked in, that is absolutely an option. Not that it should necessarily be the option that you choose. But you know, once we get this country into a place where the shooting really kicks off, you have no idea where that goes, right? War is hell, and civil war is hell on your front porch. You know, and even there'll be people that you think are on your side, but they won't be. And that would be my warning for MAGA as well. Once you start killing people's families, once you start going door to door, you're not going to know who your friends and enemies are. Right? Yeah, once you start going door to door in a community, yeah, you have no idea.
Guys, I do have a very strict time limit of about an hour and a half. So I do have to get going. I know we didn't get to Iran and the stuff's going over there, but maybe you and Oren could speak about that. I do have to get going, guys, but it was a pleasure. I very much enjoy speaking with you guys. I enjoy speaking with the Project Liberal audience as well. Joshua, thank you for the questions. I'm going to get going, guys. If you want to check me out on any of my socials, it's The Vince Wilson Show. And please make sure you're following Project Liberal. We're trying to get this podcast up and going and moving and running, and I think we're doing a great job so far. But it can definitely have some improvements, which is what we're working on. So on that note, guys, I'm going to dip out. You'll have a great evening, and thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Chief.
So he queued up Iran there, so let's go for it. Things are awful there. They have an internet shutdown.
So
we don't know.
The protests continue, is my understanding.
Yes, they do. If we can really still even call it protests. I mean, because protest denotes peaceful activity. And this is not peaceful anymore because it can't be. The government, you know, started just shooting people. So it is an armed revolt. It is a revolt for freedom of the people against a totalitarian regime. And I spoke with some Iranians here this last week, and they're telling me conservative estimate is over 13,000 dead right now. So it is a huge scale of death. Trump was telling them not to go there, but that goes unheeded. They don't care. And Trump is kind of...
He said that we're with them, and then he tacoed out again. That's got to be... Maybe that might be the worst taco, and that's saying a lot.
It
saying
might be. Yeah, no, I agree. The problem is that, if anyone's doing the killing, Trump wants it to be him. And I don't think the U.S. should be getting kinetic in here. If you're dropping bombs on Tehran, you're not going to be able to easily avoid killing, revolutionaries either. Going to be very difficult. The only way to really sort it out is on the ground, and we're not there, and we shouldn't be there. So I'll just repeat again that we should be, we should be the arsenal of democracy, and we should be selling or giving guns to those who want to protect their lives with them, right? Who want to defend their freedoms and their families. Because the other side has guns and they're using them and they're going and killing civilians who got injured. It's brutal, and they're already at the point where there is no other option. There never really was in Iran, unfortunately. There is multiple sides to this. Right now we have the Democratic revolutionaries are paying the main price. There are others. There are Kurdish separatists. There are other minority groups that also want to separate from the brutal regime. And
do we like the Kurd separatists?
Honestly, they should. We just need a promise that they're going to behave better.
Do we, the Americans, like the Kurd separatists? I mean, not just more than the regime, just in general. Do we like them?
I mean, it's really up to the people to decide after this whether they're one state or they're four. The need for separatism, in my opinion, is really just based on the fact that the Ayatollah is in control, right? So they are separate causes. There's all these different groups can agree that the Ayatollah and the Guardian Council got to go. What happens afterwards, that's a different thing. There's definitely some room for compromise, I think, among some of the groups. So we'll see. That's something that they have to work out. We can't work it out for them. We are not in a position. We definitely have the contacts with the U.S. government that we could arm the Iranian Kurds if we chose to. It would be easy. There would probably be no denying it. It would be an obvious act. And maybe that's something we need to go to Congress for. But I would say that, we should do it. There would have to be an agreement, though, that it's not just a racial nationalist conflict, that they would fight for the freedom of their non-Kurdish brothers and sisters in Iran. But, the Kurds in Iraq and Syria, they've done that. They've met that. So there'd certainly be the hope and somewhat of an expectation that Iranian Kurds could do the same.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and actually, again, another comment by Joshua Barker here on Discord. That's where I read all the comments, is on our Project Liberal Discord. Because he brings up what happened in Syria recently, and Trump did meddle in that. It's kind of a mess, unfortunately, because the U.S. is not doing the right thing there. The Syrian Kurds are under pressure from the new Syrian government, basically to disarm. But at the same time, they are threatened by Turkey, they are threatened by Turkish armed militias, and they are threatened by the ruling government's Islamist allies. So there's no real protection for them, and really kind of, in my opinion, at this point, they need to be independently armed, because no one else is willing to and can guarantee their lives, unless the U.S. keeps a long-term military presence there on both sides of the border with Turkey, which is not a good position for us to be in. Trump continues making a mess of that. Russia continues staying in Syria. We are not pressuring them to get out, unfortunately, with Trump. And so it remains a bad situation there as well. I do not put the blame for that on the current leadership of Syria, which is kind of not strong enough to really do anything. Whether or not they would do the right thing if they could, I know there's some debate on that. But the fact of the matter is they simply can't right now. So here we go. I don't know if we have any more comments or if there's anything else to be said on Iran.
What do you think is the expectation for Iran? Is it going to? Do you think you're going to be able to put it down? It's impossible to know, I guess. I know that there was talk about intervention, and then Trump, I guess, gave up on it.
I think without outside help, the cause of the revolutionaries is pretty dire. What we'd have to look for is to see if groups in the military start changing sides. And as I said, in the Civil War, it really does become unpredictable.
Yeah.
You kill someone's cousin, and all of a sudden, an entire battalion may switch sides. It can just happen like that. This is not something over like a cause of slavery with states neatly lined up. The American Civil War, which was our bloodiest conflict in history, more so even than World War II, was still, as civil wars go, pretty nicely lined up because our states divided up pretty well. Most civil wars are from, doorstep to doorstep.
The Spanish Civil War, I've been reading about that, was like far more.
I do want to actually say a couple more things about Iran, and I actually wish Vince was still here for it. Iran has been for years now really good at propagandizing Americans through TikTok, specifically. I know he's active on TikTok, so I wish he could talk to that. But yeah, they have been incredibly good at getting American college students to do just crazy things without looking into it, attacking boats that they thought had something to do with Israel that actually had nothing to do with Israel. So we do need to beware of indirect Iranian propaganda here in the U.S. It doesn't look like Iranian propaganda, right?
It never does.
It just when you dive into it, it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
But it's funded by Iran. They're not pushing Islamist teaching or anything like that on America. They know there aren't enough Americans, even Muslim Americans, that are susceptible to their message.
I wanted to ask your opinion.
I do want to say,
yes, go for it.
That Yale University was supposed to have a pro-Iran event today. So that was something that kind of caught my eye on the way of Iranian propaganda. So it's here, particularly on our college campuses, and particularly aimed at young people who don't know better the history of the region in order to tell what's propaganda and what's not.
Yeah. You think I thought college kids already made that mistake back in 79, but here we are.
Yeah, and ironically, one of the better things you can do to protect yourself from some of the Iranian propaganda is to have more Muslim friends.
Yeah. If you want to find
as
someone,
I said,
if you want to find someone who hates
fall for this.
Yeah, if you want to find some people who hate the fucking Iranian government, you're gonna look no further than some people from Iran.
Yeah, look no further. No matter their religion, get to know some people from Iran, and they will tell you what's up. They'll even quickly point out, what is obvious regime propaganda because they grew up with it their entire lives. They notice it faster than I do, by far.
I wanted to ask on that note, how do you feel? I was curious your thoughts about it. So I've been hearing for a long time about Qatar and Qatari propaganda. How real is it? How dangerous is it?
Qatari propaganda is very real. It is not aligned with Iran. So there's another thing. That's definitely something that I would say people here are more susceptible to, like the Trump airplane, right? So that was a bribe from Qatar, and they got what they wanted. They're very good at it. It's a wealthy nation, and they know how to pass money around in the right way. So Qatar, and the slick thing that they do is it's not Islamist propaganda. It will be paid for, bought PR firms, right, to get them what they want. I mean, they're absolutely Islamists there in government. They have an Islamist agenda, but their propaganda isn't Islamist. You will typically not even hear anything about Islam in it. They will have a very slick propaganda angle. So far, they seem, they realize who's in power right now, so they are targeting Republicans, and they are doing so effectively. But when Democrats are in control, I expect that they could very easily turn that around. Qatar, it's a wealthy nation, doesn't really have much in the way of a military. They can't protect themselves from their violent neighbors that way. So being good at the PR and the propaganda, that is their defense tool.
Yeah.
They are very good at it. It is what keeps that country going. And you just have, for the most part, you have to follow the money. When something doesn't quite make sense, when it doesn't pass the smell test, you look into it, you investigate it, you find the money trail. And then you may find with, some very slick propaganda that Qatar is behind it, financing it.
Not too shocking. So, to what extent, I'm curious, to what extent is this, an issue? Or, do you think that, there's, been talk that Tucker Carlson, he's, Tucker Qatarlson, I don't know if you've heard his little nickname.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Do you think he's low-key bought and sold? I wouldn't necessarily be shocked.
No, I think Russia still owns him. Qatar is just a convenient meeting place. That and the United Arab Emirates. It's all for sale. Qatar is not as big of a threat right now, particularly Russia and China, simply because of a matter of scale. Qatar can afford to buy some people and some messaging agencies, but they cannot propagandize at scale the way that Russia, China, and Iran can, where people just hear their messaging so much and so often. You go onto Twitter and you go onto any politician's Twitter account, and if it's anything of interest to Russia, there will be 100 bots on there commenting, right? That's all Russian propaganda. Qatar is nothing like that. Qatar is slick agencies, right? Which, it's more subtle. It's not as pervasive. They can't really manipulate America as a people as effectively. So yeah, I would still say the ones to watch out for are Russia, China, and Iran. But the best thing is just to protect yourself against fake messaging in general, right? Learn to recognize inauthenticity. Learn to question, not to believe things at first glance. The most dangerous form of propaganda, and we actually had it here recently. There was some Russian propaganda saying that the U.S. had given intelligence to Russia from Ukraine, and it was meant to discredit Ukrainian activists. But we got the message out there quickly enough that this was a fake story being spread by Russia. Right?
Yeah,
you gotta learn more than ever in this age to question and spot a fake, and don't believe anything at first.
Especially in the age of AI. Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
Especially when the White House is using freaking AI.
A good example, I passed along a story this week to you, Owen, right? Of the documents, and you questioned me on it, and that is exactly the right thing to do. I gave a very authentic looking link with a very authentic looking paper, had sources listed on the paper, and you still questioned me on it. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. That is what you have to do in this day and age, because inauthentic things more easily than ever can be made to look legit. So you really got to follow the trail.
I want to say
make sure somebody has.
Is to remember. So a lot of people, I have people who are like, God, it's so difficult to, follow because it feels like you have to quadruple fact check everything, and it's so frustrating. And my advice to those people is just remember the I don't want to I hope I don't sound like too hyperbolic when I say the forces of evil, but like those who are illiberal, who are against what we stand for, their goal is to exhaust you. The goal is to propagate enough that you just give up and you get exhausted. And so it's important to never get exhausted, because if you do, they win off that alone. That's all they need. That's all they're looking for at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is precisely how Russian propaganda works. Isn't that you believe a lie, but you can't know what the truth is, right? Because they'll come up and pass crazy stuff. They're not trying to make you believe it. They're trying to exhaust you mentally so that you stop trying. We're not alone out here. You don't have to do everything yourself. Obviously, you see something on social media, don't believe it until you've investigated it. But, there are still different groups that are doing good work, that are doing the investigation for you. So there are a bunch of good reporting that's going on out there. Look for it. Follow those who do. Any one of them can change, right? Too. So just because someone's good today doesn't mean they'll get bought out by someone, tomorrow, next month, or in a year. Just watch others. Whoever you're choosing to get your news from, are they doing that investigation for you? Can you trust them?
A really important question.
So we're coming up close to the hour here.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about that we didn't?
Vince wanted us to talk about the Renee Good autopsy.
Yeah. Did you hear about it? I actually am not familiar with it, unfortunately. The zone has
I'm not sure where he wanted to go with it. I know that an independent autopsy just found that she was shot in the head.
And that she was actually alive for like 8 minutes or something like that. And their lack of providing care now just further solidifies.
Refusal to allow the paramedics through was what, killed her, basically. Who knows if they could have saved her, but she would have lived longer at least. It was absolutely deliberate murder, including the choice to go for the head. People are taught to shoot for the body center mass. You can hit that more easily, more reliable, and it stops someone. It is less lethal. If you really want someone dead, even if you're willing to miss, you shoot for the head.
You just did it. People are defending it to this day, man. It's just, it's so, it's insane to me. There's the most annoying part, and I just don't know how to deal with it, is that if the sides were reversed, do not ever be led to believe that anything other than what I'm about to say is true. That if the sides were reversed, Republicans would not be defending this at all. That to defend such a thing would be that would be a joke. They would not. But here we are.
No, as soon as a Democrat is elected president, everything that's happening now will be the worst ever. But it won't be because they're against it. It'll just be because they're afraid that what they did is going to be used against them. And rightfully so. And there are a lot on the left who don't want to fix things. They just want revenge. This is one of my concerns with this upcoming election, is that we really need to put down this attempt at revenge, because what revenge is going to get? It's going to get us an even worse Republican in the future. Yes, there is worse than Donald Trump.
You're not a big fan of Nuremberging everyone. I'm getting the sense.
You know, I'm actually fine with it. ICE, we could use another Nuremberg for ICE. Just what I'm afraid of is that we'll have people who want to, you know, it's the one ring and they want to use it for good, of course, right? That's the temptation. And, you know, these abusive government powers, they got to be put down.
Yeah.
Or they will be abused worse in the future.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, or did you want to call it right there? It's a
I think,
good line to me.
you know, we'll take a minute for if there's any questions or anything. I always like to give the audience a chance. Check and let me know if they're saying anything on Twitch or whatever.
No, it's hard to even see on Twitch because it's just that thing spamming me endlessly. It's really
You drove
annoying.
them all away.
Feel like annoying me, but at least it's not spamming the Discord anymore, but spamming the Twitch chat, so it's...
Yeah, hey, that's my favorite. Look, people, we've got a Project Liberal Discord. Look us up and join us. We do have fun there. I post various news articles that I'm reading throughout the day. So if you want to see what some of the topics may be in advance, it's always there, and there's lots of fun people, not just Owen and Vince here to talk to.
Yeah. We have a nice active
So,
community,
join up.
so it's great. Okay, and on that note, I think we'll call it. 'cause I think we've
We got
exhausted-
one more comment, so we'll make this the last one. America is no longer, this is again from Joshua Barker, America is no longer in an era of democracy. It's currently a presidential autocracy. Almost, yeah. I disagree only because it seems we still have the courts working for us.
Congress has absolutely given up on
Yep.
all things. It's
Congress,
incredible,
we just have the Republican majority in Congress is just going along. They have no independence, not in the numbers that are needed. Yeah, you know what? I don't think we really have time for the reasoning on it this week, but it sounds like something we could talk about next week.
Yeah.
If you're willing, we could probably even invite you up to the stage to talk here.
Yeah, that could be fun.
It's a discussion I'd love to have.
Still trying to find people who
I
wanna
don't
debate.
think the courts are doing enough. I don't think the courts act fast enough, and I don't think the courts have enough powers legally to shut things down. And I do think that's something that we should look at in the future, is giving the courts more power over executive agencies.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when they're just they're ruling by executive order. This unitary executive theory. It's man, I just don't understand how some people don't see this as they get deluded, man. The Peter Thiels of the world, they're just very deluded people.
They are. They're drunk on their own power, and you know, they think it's not going to end. They've been riding, you know, these power trips for so long, acquiring more and more. They don't see that there could ever be a limit to it, but it always does. And usually for those folks, it ends in a very brutal and catastrophic manner. It's not me wishing it on them. That's just me reading history.
Yeah, traditionally. All right. Well, guys, if you have any other questions or any other thoughts, please join us in the Discord. Happy to take your thoughts. We like to keep these things short because, you know, we don't want to just read Twitter threads all day, although we could. That's the meta on online politics, unfortunately. In any case, thank you guys for joining, and I'll talk to everybody soon. We might be on tomorrow, maybe. If I don't see you guys tomorrow, I'll see you on Monday with Rob, one way or the other. We'll do Arc Raiders either tomorrow or Monday. I'll keep you guys updated, though. Thanks again for dropping by, and see y'all soon.